welcome back. If you are new to my channel, my name is Brittany, and if you are not yet subscribed, definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button. So today we are actually going to dive into a true crime case. This case was actually requested from one of you guys, so sorry it took me so long to actually get this up. I had the research all printed out and everything, and just finally sat down and dove through it, and oh my gosh, you guys, it's pretty crazy. So let's dive in. Now, this case is about a man named Murdered Al Kite. So he went by Al. And I just want to say, just forewarning, a lot of true crime cases are they're messed up, to say the least. So for mature audiences only, just because the details are a little graphic. I just want to put that out there just in case. Anyways, we're going to dive right in to this case. So in 2004, a man by the name of Murdered Al Kite was brutally murdered in his townhouse basement. He lived at 2002 South Helena Street in Aurora, Colorado. On Saturday, May 22nd, 2004, Al Kite had taken his girlfriend Linda to the airport. She was leaving on a weeks-long vacation. Al was home doing minor repairs on a pipe in the basement, and he actually got the help from his neighbor. He was also expecting the arrival of his new tenant, Robert Cooper. Now, Robert Cooper actually became the main suspect, so we are going to focus on him a lot in this case. On May 18th, a few days before the murder, Kite met with Cooper, who had agreed to rent out the basement of the townhouse. Now, Kite's previous tenant had vacated on May 1st, and because Kite had already knew about the tenant leaving, he had put an ad in the newspaper. Kite's girlfriend Linda had actually been invited over. She showed up, knocked on the door. So Kite had came up from the basement and let Linda in. He asked Linda if she wanted to meet his prospective tenant, and she was like, well, sure, I just need to use the bathroom first. So she went into the bathroom. While she was in the bathroom, she heard her boyfriend telling Robert Cooper, like, hey, do you want to meet my girlfriend? And he made up some excuse and left before Linda even came out of the bathroom. So the only view of Robert Cooper that she ever got was from the backside of him. She saw his face in profile. She noticed the clothes he was wearing and also noticed that he was carrying a cane. Kite later told Linda that Robert Cooper returned to his house on May 18th, so that same day, and paid him $500 in cash for half a month's rent, along with $250 for half of the security deposit. At that time, Kite gave Cooper the key. Now, this was just 4 days before he was murdered. Every piece of information police would find out that Robert Cooper put on his rental agreement was fake, which is, a little bit of a red flag. The social security number belonged to an 80-year-old woman who lived in Indiana. The address was for an elementary school in Denver, and his reference phone number was from an Aurora retirement village. So what happened? Okay, so we're gonna reiterate. On Saturday, May 22nd, 2004, Kite took Linda to the airport, then him and his neighbor were fixing a broken pipe, and then, so some people say, or some things say that or mention a recliner that Kite was supposedly supposed to help Robert Cooper move into the basement. Like, it was Kite's recliner and he was giving it to him. But then other sources don't mention a recliner at all. And you have to wonder, why would he have somebody, like, if his neighbor was already over helping him, why would he have somebody that needs a cane to help him move a recliner, which would probably be pretty heavy, down the stairs? But it almost seems like Robert Cooper wanted to arrange the killing of Al Kite and not just, wait for an opportunity. He just kind of, maybe he decided to create that opportunity. Now, Linda spoke to Kite twice on the phone on May 22nd. After she took off to Virginia Beach. She talked to him once during layover and the second time when she met her destination. So she said the second time he was very quiet, which was unlike him, especially when he was talking to her. So she believes that at this time that he was with his killer. Linda's call at 3:30 MDT was the last time that anybody ever heard from Al Kite. Which, can you imagine, guys? Like, you being the last person to ever speak, like known, to ever speak to your significant other or even a person in general, and you are like thousands of miles away and can't do anything. So over the course of the next day or the next few hours, they're not really completely certain. Between Saturday and Sunday, Kite was beaten, bound, tortured, and murdered. It wasn't until Kite failed to show up to work that following Monday, on May 24th, that his body was discovered in the basement of his townhouse. Kite was lying dead, face down, on the floor. He had been tied up, tortured, and nearly decapitated. The bottoms of his feet were up in the air with the binding, and they were bruised. The coroner thought that the torture went on for several hours. Like, can you imagine? There was a knife into above his eye, in through his ears, down through his shoulders. It was a lot. Upstairs, police discovered that the offender actually placed several knives, a drinking glass, all items that he touched, in the kitchen sink and filled it with bleach, which was destroying any DNA evidence. That would be so frustrating as an investigator because, like, that's all right there. And I mean, yeah, like, it's evidence still, but all the DNA is completely gone. It was almost like a taunting, like a warning. However, on the stairs leading down to the basement, they did find a single drop of blood belonging to an unknown male. The DNA sample was uploaded into the FBI's National Combined DNA Index system, but so far there's been no matches. Kite's truck was actually found a few blocks away on that same day. His phone and his wallet were left in a part of Denver, and people picked them up and used it. So it further confused the case. It was just random people finding these objects and using them. I'm going to guess that it was not a very good part of town if they weren't immediately turned in when somebody found them. Like, I went to Dollar General because I really wanted hot fries, because I really like hot fries. And so I went into Dollar General. I was walking up, I saw where the carts were, and I saw a wallet sitting there, so immediately I went in and brought it to the cashier. But these people saw a wallet and a phone and decided to use them. Anyways, following the murder, investigators learned that the suspect stole Kite's truck and drove to a nearby Wells Fargo ATM, where he was photographed withdrawing about $1,000, and he was wearing a ski mask and gloves to conceal his identity. Now, in the grand scheme of things, guys, $1,000 really is not a lot. So it kind of leads that, like, his killer didn't kill him for money. At least money from him. Maybe money from somebody else, but not money from him, because you have to be insanely desperate if you, I mean, you shouldn't go around killing people in general. Bad. But you have to be insanely desperate if you are going to kill someone for $1,000. Which actually happened in another case that I do want to do more research on. So stay tuned for that one. So after looking into Kite's phone record, they discovered that the cell phone that Robert Cooper had used was actually a convenience store burner phone, which he waited 30 days after purchasing in March 2004 to activate the phone, which is the exact amount of time that the convenience store actually holds the footage for the security cameras. So it was very pre-planned. And he only used this phone to call rental properties. So it was almost like he was hunting for victims. Now, Robert Cooper had actually approached a woman before Kite. Well, Robert Cooper, by the way, that is not this guy's actual name. This is his alias. If that wasn't obvious, I just want to kind of point that out. But he had actually approached another woman for a rental property before he approached Al Kite. Now, this woman was made very uncomfortable by him. She said that he made the skin on the back of her neck crawl, and that he would walk around while she was showing him the property. He would walk around and check the windows, which is really rather odd. So because he creeped her out so much, she refused to offer him tenancy, which might have actually saved her life. And the one thing she did notice, though, is that he had a slight Romanian accent. So another odd thing is it's actually believed that Robert Cooper stayed at Al's house after he murdered him. It's believed that he took a shower and then dumped bleach down the drain, and then actually slept in Al's bed and wore Al's clothes. Like, this person was all kinds of messed up. Believed that he, slept in his bed and wore his clothes because those things were removed from the crime scene. Or removed, from the scene in general. Now we're going to talk about theories. So because of the way that Kite was hogtied, it's theorized that the killer might be a sailor of some sort, possibly someone from the Coast Guard. Kite was bound around the upper arm, above the elbow, and twice above the knee. However, this doesn't really fit with somebody being hogtied. Usually the bindings only go from the wrist to the ankles. So it kind of leads people away from the whole sailor or from the Coast Guard theory, and instead actually leads them in a different direction completely. So this binding method actually exposed the bottom of Kite's feet, and these were covered in wounds and bruises. Now in Turkey, there's actually a form of foot beating called falaka. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. It's used as a way to extract information. It's such a strange thing to me, just beating somebody's feet. Falaka is typically performed using a cane or a switch, and remember, Robert Cooper had a cane. In the bleach-filled sink at Kite's house, the offender also placed a honing rod, which is often made of steel and used to sharpen the blades of knives. A honing rod would be very comparable to the tools that they would use when performing falaka. The way that Kite was tied up is also specifically linked to a group called the Turkish Hezbollah. The hog tying was actually the organization's signature, which is pretty ironic. And its members were known for its torture tactics. And Kite was tortured. So the Turkish Hezbollah actually disbanded in the early 2000s, and many members actually fled and avoided capture. But 2004 is still kind of the early 2000s. So even if they disbanded, there's quite a few members that got away, I feel like they don't, if you are, killing and torturing people, I feel like you don't just fall out of that. that's like a lifestyle for them. So it would make sense that they were actually hunting for for victims to do this to, because, or even being hired to perform these acts. Like, these were specialized, trained people to torture and kill. It's terrifying. Now, the blood sample at the scene were tested for ancestral information, and it linked the suspect's lineage potentially back to the Balkan region. And based on the blood test results, the binding, the torture, and the possible Romanian accent, it's speculated that Robert Cooper could have actually been a member of the Turkish Hezbollah. Now, in order to get to another theory, we have to talk about Al Kite's background a little bit. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in business administration from Atlantic Christian College in Wilson, North Carolina. Now, for the next 31 years, Al Kite worked for an engineering firm called Stone and Webster. Now, the interesting thing about Stone and Webster is that they actually construct and manage national laboratories, including the facilities of the Manhattan Project, where the first atomic bomb was created. So they were pretty big. Stone and Webster built the nation's first nuclear plant after beating out 90 other companies with their proposal. Kite was also said to work as a timekeeper there. He was the person in charge of managing and accounting for the number of hours worked for payroll purposes. Kite's first job was at the Surrey nuclear plant. It said that he moved up on the accounting team and eventually worked as a project manager, designing accounting systems for a number of Stone and Webster's projects in nearly half a dozen locations. While working for Stone and Webster, Kite was manager of accounting procedures at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, San Francisco National Airport, and Bay Area Rapid Transit in California. Kite had also worked overseas as senior timekeeper on a project in Algeria. So the theory here is Kite found a flaw in the system, brought it to the attention of the company, and had him killed. Now, or brought it to somebody else and it had him killed. Or he had all of this, this information, this inside information. And that would explain, him getting brutally tortured, because this falaka was used to extract information from people before, ultimately killing them. So I don't know if everybody who got this done, had falaka performed to them, died, but in the history of it happening, obviously Al Kite did, but they wanted to know something, or they were just really sadistic, or maybe both. Now, so this isn't the first time that the company was thought to have done something like this. Their company was actually pretty shady and very secretive, which leads us to another case. Lee Scott Hall, who was 54 years old when he was discovered beaten and repeatedly stabbed in his bedroom of his Livermore home on October 20th, 2000. He was discovered by two co-workers. Hall was a lead designer on a $1.2 billion project, which was a national ignition facility, which when completed would monitor the nation's nuclear stockpile without the need for underground testing. For a year guys, Hall was trying to bring attention to a miscalculation in this multi-million installation of super laser beams that is part of the ignition facility. However, only weeks before his death had the laboratory actually started to deal with the problem. Only weeks before. He tried for a year, guys. Now, it's said that the lab was stonewalling the police. They didn't really want to answer any information. They kind of were giving them the runabout on things. They weren't being super cooperative, which obviously raises a lot of suspicion. And It said that that was right in character for them. That was a very quiet and secretive place, and this particular error was first discovered in the fall of 1998. Now, Hall had found a 5-degree error in the rotation of the 192 beams on this enormous project. It seems that the lab just kind of ignored Hall. And to make matters worse, they even blamed him for the error that he uncovered, which put him under a lot of stress. In mid-September, the optics people found that the problem was far more severe than they thought. They decided it needed to be fixed, and Hall was placed in a team with other people to fix the problem. Now, Hall failed to show up for work, so his 2 co-workers became a little worried, and they decided to go and check on him. So this was Foley and Davis. They went to his house on October 20th and found that the door was unlocked and the side gate left ajar. Now, this was not like Hall. He lived alone and always had this routine. Like, there's no way that he would have left the side gate unlocked. Days later, a neighbor actually told police that at 1 a.m. in the morning on October 18th, they heard gravel crunching on the side of the house. The location of Hall's car, which was a 1992 Acura Vigor, that was usually parked in the garage, was actually found a block away on Lilac Way, which was a little odd. His wallet, which was completely untouched, which means that this person didn't really care about money, unless of course, it wasn't coming from him, and his security ID were both found in the car. However, the keys for the car were never discovered. When Foley and Davis went into their friend's house, they went in through the kitchen, which they didn't notice that Hall's glasses were in the kitchen and Hall needed those to see. So if they noticed that, it would have been a little bit odd that he didn't have them, which it was odd that he didn't have them, but they didn't notice them there. They passed through the living room, which the TV was on, and then into the master bedroom. Hall's body was sprawled out on the floor, almost face down. He wore shorts, a t-shirt, 1 slipper, and the other slipper laid nearby. There was some blood, but the bedroom showed no signs of a struggle, and it was to the point that both men thought at first that he must have fallen and struck his head on the nightstand. Now, after Hall went to the coroner, there was a lot more found. And this was no accident. He was viciously, repeatedly beaten. Bruises and scrapes covered his body. His face was scratched as if the person was wearing a ring of some sort or an abrasive glove. A contusion on his right temple may have been the blow that knocked him unconscious, and another blow broke his Adam's apple. I can only imagine how painful that would be. But the assailant didn't stop after that beating. Using a knife or something with a long blade, the weapon was never found. Hall was stabbed 10 times. One of Hall's kidneys and his liver were stabbed. His heart was almost severed, and one stab wound went all the way through his body. Since the door was unlocked and there was a small amount of alcohol in his system, it led investigators to believe that the person that killed him was somebody that he was comfortable with. After his death, it was discovered that Hall was an introvert who had been married 2 times before. The marriages were rather short. He also had a son who was grown up and had a family of his own now. And his son would call him, but Hall didn't really reach back out to him often. And it wasn't until recently that the son actually started talking to his father again, like trying to reach out to him more. And he even sent him pictures of his 2 kids. Now, his son's name was Michael Stouter, and he voluntarily agreed to do a polygraph test. Hall had left no will to him, or no will in general, but a 6-figure estate would be coming to his son, and his son actually did sell his dad's house, but the police did not think that his son was a suspect at all. Police found nothing of value missing from Hall's home. It wasn't just like a burglary gone wrong. He was not in debt, and his bank accounts were intact. Have DNA results and identified the gender, but they haven't disclosed that. It's probably one of those things where they withhold some information. That way they can confirm, if anybody does come forward, that it is the accurate person that actually committed this. But they have a hunch that it was work-related. Now, Hall's boss, Foley, actually refused to take a polygraph test. Now, polygraph tests are not always accurate. There's a lot of things that can make them, you know, they're just very inconclusive. There's a lot of things that can make you fail a polygraph test. And I'm pretty sure not, like, they can't hold up in court. They're just like a way for police to kind of like rule out people or to get people to open up a little bit more. But not agreeing to take one makes you look very guilty. The police lifted palm prints and fingertip prints from Hall's house. Now, none of them belong to Foley. And however, so none of them belong to him, but, you know, henchmen. And they have done what they called an elimination fingerprinting to the co-workers who voluntarily cooperated. Now, not everybody at Hall's work cooperated. Some people only answered the questions that the police directly asked them. Other people just, you know, they didn't want to talk. So, but there were some that did cooperate and they got eliminated. Hall also received a substantial raise before his death, and in November, the group with which Hall was working with to fix the problem is said to found a solution. Foley said that they expect to go out and buy the new parts within the next 4 to 5 months. Now, police didn't buy this. They thought that, you know, it was his death was work-related and that they were just trying to cover things up. To this day, they think that Hall was the only person who actually knew how to fix the problem. Now, Hall is a very liked person. His case has never been solved. Now, maybe this is just a coincidence. Two people who work for the same company ending up dead, like brutally murdered and tortured in a span of 4 years. And neither of those killers being found, but maybe it's not. Because the company itself was pretty shady. According to a report in the San Francisco Gate, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory was at the time facing an investigation into concealment of cost overruns and delays at Livermore. Calculation error was first discovered in 1998, which is the same year that Al Kite was offered a transfer to Colorado. Stone & Webster collapsed in 2000 after a major bribery scandal. The company had attempted to pay $147 million, which is a lot, to a relative of Indonesian President Suharto to secure the largest contract ever in the company's history. Stone & Webster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2000 because of cash flow problems. The company was purchased at auction by the Show Group for $150 million, and Kite was let go from Stone & Webster by Shaw Group Management in 2002. Now, Kite had worked as a manager in accounting, so there's a pretty good chance that he knew some pretty big things as far as finances go. So it would kind of make sense that it was work related. This death was not just this random act. And, you know, maybe the person that was Robert Cooper was actually just, you know, this psychopath, but that was just looking for a victim. But maybe he wasn't. I mean, yes, he's definitely a psychopath. You can't do that and not be one. It's just the way it is. But maybe he didn't do it completely on his own. Maybe there was somebody behind the veil. This was definitely pre-planned and thought out a lot. The fact that with the phone and the bleach and actually like arranging a time that Kite and him would be alone with like he knew, he had to have known that his Kite's girlfriend Linda would be away. So maybe that was the perfect time for him. It's so sad to me when cases go unsolved and they never find the person, so hopefully eventually they will. It's terrifying to think that somebody like Robert Cooper is still out there and got away with it. I want to know what you guys think happens. Do you guys think that both Hall and Kite were murdered because of things that they knew about the company they worked for? Do you think that it's just a mere coincidence? Do you think that it's, you know, they just had people that just really didn't like them? There's so many different ways that all this could have went, but it does seem very ironic to me that they both worked at the same place. They worked for the same company. They, you know, both had knowledge of things that the company probably didn't want them sharing. And it was a really big company. So who's to say that they, you know, they wouldn't do anything in their power to keep people's mouths closed? I don't know, you guys. What do you guys think about this? Leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you like true crime cases like this, definitely make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed yet, definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on that little bell so you get notifications for all of my videos. And until next time, I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.